Good evening. We're gathered for the Ask the Clergy series here at the Monroeville Library, and our presenter tonight is Harilal Patel, who's a representative from the Hindu-Jain Temple, but also very familiar and spends time in other temples locally. So he is going to speak to us about Hinduism, and there will be lots of opportunity to ask questions. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Patel.
Okay, thank you, Linda. I will start with the name itself, Hindu. The real name is called Sanatan, or no name if you want to call, but we call it Sanatan. Sanatan means eternal. We also don't call religion. Religion is something which someone has founded. It's a kind of what we refer to as a dogmatic religion, and it has a founder, it has a date of a beginning, while we call it dharma. Dharma means it is the law of the nature, and I'll go on explaining how it started. Dharma means our responsibility, our duties, our code of conduct. So when somebody refers to Hindu Dharma, there are code of conducts that one should know or to confine and abide by. Now where the name Hindu came from? Hindu name really is given by Iranian king one time referred to the visitor in his cabinet. A person came beyond the river called Indus and Sindhu. So he referred that as a Hindu or Sindhu, and everybody then picked up this word called Hindu. So everybody who lived, it's a geographical name. The people who lived on that side of the river are called Hindu. So what is the origin of it then? Like every religion has a founder and have approximate date when it started. I call it religion really started when we all human beings started becoming slowly civilized from the Stone Age. I have here a migration chart drawn by Lucy Leakey, and she refers the very first human migrated from modern days to Tanzania in that region to via Iran, Yemen to the India or the northern India, which is today partly in Pakistan and partly in India, that the Indus Valley area on the bank of Indus, Sindhu River and Saraswathi region. So that is where the civilization got developed. At that time, it was kind of ice age in Europe. There were many different groups migrated in South Africa and other regions, but the major group came here. I can, have these things for reference. Anyone who wants to look at further how people have migrated worldwide from it. So once they settle over there, the settlement, because there are 5 rivers today coming from Himalaya with plenty of water, plain ground. If you look at the topographical map of Pakistan and India in that region, it's kind of a flat. High quality, like Iowa's or Nebraska's land, where you can just throw the fistful of wheat and 2 months later you can come and harvest without doing anything. And that's where the civilization of the human really started. Now, I will address 2 things, origin as well as other question people in West often have it called caste business. So here, as the people came on coming from, Africa in a small cluster or big cluster, they started settling there. As they kept on settling, obviously we know history of American Indian here, how they were just 200-300 years ago. they started living in a group. However, in that group, they started dividing the work. Someone who was smart, making observation and concluding the result of it and telling what it should be, making observation from the sky or what grows around and those things. So those people, modern day they are called Brahmin. Then there was a group of people who wanted to probably control and have a law and order and those things. They were called Kshatriya, modern day military and police and the political whole group of those people. Third group of people are the skill and trade people who will go out or produce things themselves and supply, like a cobbler, goldsmith, carpenters, all of those kind of people. Then there were fourth category of people, we actually call 18 groups, I'm dividing only in 4. These are the people who would not have much of the skill of any kind or ability to do certain things. So they were given a work to do in society, like a cleaning the street or taking the dead animal off the street. And this is how we call Varna Vyavastha came. Caste is not the word exists in India, it is a British label because it is what is happening today and has been happening all the time is we all ourselves project on someone else as we think or what we are. In reality, it is not. So the Western models are imposed upon India, either it is social, economics or anything. And today also there are many conflicts because of what you think doesn't necessarily fits in that model. So this is how we call Jati and Varna. It's a profession which you select, which your ability and you do it. I'm not going in detail about it. I have written big article on that Jati and Varna and caste, what those things means, how they have been misunderstood about it. But now these are the people who so-called Brahmin or could be anybody. The one who started making observations and those things, whom we referred as rishis or seers or modern day scientists who will ask questions how, which, what and why these things are happening and then passing that information and knowledge to the others. Now this knowledge was being transferred from we call teacher to pupil. The student is a kind of a dialogue method, questions and answers. So the student will ask question to the teacher and teacher answer and student can cross-check it. So it went by filtration of going in that order. Eventually all of these things for whatever number of years you can put it, 100,000 years or 100 or million years, that knowledge eventually got filtered and written down on the banana leaf or on a bronze sheets or copper sheets, and finally when the paper was invented, it came on paper. And all of this knowledge what they got it is being said that this knowledge came while they were meditating or contemplating toward the God. So it is something they basically heard or experienced in that order. And that's what the knowledge is referred as Veda. And there are 4 Vedas, Rigveda, Samveda, Atharveda, Yajurveda. Now, each one of them tells different things within. First one has a big volumes and it's referred to essentially the natures and around the abilities of human to interact with them. And these 4 Vedas are our foremost, holiest book of Hindus. Now, there are many books then after. From these 4 Vedas, there are 108 we call Upanishad, which are the heart of the Veda. They have taken abstract from it, and in a small compilation of those books, called Upanishad. That's what I read most of the time. I have Vedas too, but Upanishad is easier to read. Then after Upanishad, there is a book called Bhagavad Gita. Brought it here. It has 800 stanzas and has a commentary in English. And any one of you can also, scholarly can write and do the commentary. So in India, if you go for this Bhagavad Gita, you have to ask, whose commentary do you want to read? Not just Bhagavad Gita. Otherwise, you won't get any analysis of it, just couplets in Sanskrit. And that book is considered most common guidebook for living people. Our day-to-day life, any question arises, Mahatma Gandhi had referred this book as his guidebook for whole life and followed that. Even today, many people use this book as their guidebook. So that's where the scripture comes from, the origin and the founders. Besides these books which I mentioned, there are agmas, they call it, which is slightly different from Vedas. Veda, if you call pure sciences, then agmas are applied sciences like engineering. And it will tell you how to build the house, where the door should be, where the puja should be, where the kitchen should be. All and everything in detail part of it is given in those kind of books. And then there are two itihas or history. One history book which is called Ramayana. Lord Rama, who was born about 10,000 years ago in a city called Ayodhya, probably you may have heard in news lately about it. And he traveled all the way to Sri Lanka, and I'm not referring to the story part, but almost every inch of the India he had walked on, and is considered, we call human being perfect with soul kala, means all the virtues, and he had it. On the day of the coronation, where he was going to be crowned as a king, just night before he leaves his kingdom and goes to forest for 14 years, just because his father had vowed and to comply that vow, he leaves. 5,000 years ago, there was a Lord Krishna was born. There is a big battle between evils and good, that's what it's going around. And this is where this book really comes. Bhagavad Gita was a preaching by Lord Krishna to one of the Pandavas, who was one of the good guy among them, who resigned not to fight among other, because of the other relatives on the other side. And that's where he preaches and shows what this real life is all about. So Bhagavad Gita is a book of religion. However, we call Mahabharata is an itihas. So those are the basically two books. Beyond that, there are 18 Puranas. All the books which I described, they are hard to digest and hard to understand for the common masses. So they wrote 18 Puranas which has stories in it, and how people with good conduct or how people should live in the society. So the entire society just basically follows those stories and say, hey, this is how one should live. And we give example to each other based on those 18 Puranas. Puranas also about 2 inch thick, each one of them. So those are the scriptures we have it. What are the basic philosophy? Now, when it comes to the philosophy, first I call it live in lately. Hindu believes that we must live in this life with least disturbance to the surrounding. So if you don't need to cut the tree, don't just cut it. Not for the pleasure you kill or eat any animal or anything. So some people are questioning today that 10,000 years ago, why did Lord Rama went for hunting? Because if you see his photograph, he has a bow and arrow with him. Though he did go for hunting, but he did one hunting, at least in the history part of it. However, all of those things we consider are non-violence, and the thinking of non-violence starts with your thought. So if you think something, it is considered, if you think something bad, it is considered a violence, even though you did not even verbalize or even acted upon. So thinking, orally speaking, and then did all of those, all of these shastras we call the book scriptures is against all of those things and goes deeper in those things. And it teaches basically to control 6 enemies of human being, like anger, lust, greed, and those are the basic philosophy in it. Now, when it comes to the soul part of it, it considers soul is divine. It's pure. It's truth, joyful, and soul never dies. That's why the reincarnation comes. When we think when we die, we take the birth according to the karmas we did in this life, and also in many of the past life accumulated for which we didn't take the results yet. And that accumulation goes with us. We call it vasana. So based on all of those things, we find right time, parents, place, and everything. We don't select the parents. It comes automatically by our own past deeds. Other thing we call it God Himself. As I said, we all have a soul and we all are part of the God. So when I bow down to you, say namaste, means I'm going down to the soul within you. And that soul, it's the same soul as I have it, or any animal or any living species has it. So we consider every person equal. That's another part here. In Hinduism, is everyone is considered equal. Since everyone is supposed to have the soul and they are all part of the God or God. So they refer to as Aham Brahmasmi. I am the God. Other philosophy Hinduism has is that to get this liberation for the soul, there are many, many paths. And all the paths eventually leads to the same ultimate goal of liberation. And in Sanskrit, there is a saying that Akashaya patita toyam yatha gachati sagaram. The rain falls from the sky, goes into all different rivers. Then Sarvadeva Namaskar, and ultimately it meets in the ocean. The ocean water is essentially same, even though we have 6 or 7 big ocean, we call it, water is same. Same way, doesn't matter whom you pray, all of your things going to the same God, one God. Now there is another misconception about number of gods. Hinduism is kind of monotheist with polythesis for the manifestation. We all are the manifestation of one God. Although we have different body, that's what makes us different person. And as a result, this human has many desires. We have given different form to the gods and different shapes and offer with different virtues. Like I have a photograph here for goddess Saraswathi. It's a goddess of knowledge or wisdom. She is holding veena and a book. She should have 4 hands and obviously the beads and sitting on swan. Now there is a goddess for wealth, goddess for progeny. You probably heard Kali or Durga. Those are the goddesses for your personal protection. And almost every village in India has what we call a Grama Devi. Every village has their own goddess they have named for protection of their region. But along with that knowledge, the mother you have, or goddess you have, whenever you go down, everyone has a clear understanding that there is only one God, whom we refer to as a Paramatma. Param means beyond, Atma, beyond the soul. And there are many names. To Om is one of the names, Pranav is one of the names, Narayana. There are numerous names given to God. So this is how the manifestation of God we pray. Now the other question comes is, who do we worship and what form? I divide this worship into 4 different categories. One category is formless form, omnipresent, does not have a gender, no mother, no father, and it is pervading everywhere, throughout everywhere. As I said, we all have a God, and that's a God there, whom nobody has seen it. You can perceive and feel it when you go in meditation. The second God we pray is the God whom we consider reincarnated as a human on this earth. Lord Rama 10,000 years ago, Lord Krishna 5,000 years ago, and you will see the temples of both of them all over the country. Third category are the saintly people. People who actually essentially for throughout their life helped others and devoted their entire life for helping others. Now, this is when I say refer to the saint, these saints are slightly differently nomenclature-wise than Catholics. Catholics have to beautify and have to have two magics shown and all those criteria. Here there is no criteria. It is up to the group of people to feel that this person is really holy person and does it. And maybe 5 people start respecting, then 15 and then 100 and 200. And then time comes, maybe they start worshipping. So when they worship, they also build the temple for them. We have one in Monroeville right here, Sai Baba temple. Sai Baba was born about 180 years ago in southern India. And that's what he did, he basically helped people all throughout his life. So people started worshipping. And there are 2 temples in my hometown. One belongs to one widow who actually didn't even do this. She was a sati. I'll go on that topic later on, what a sati means. And other temple was just for the hero, but it's a temple. And people pray for it. The 4th one and more important of all of this is we pray all the elements of Mother Nature which sustain our life. What does it include? Everything what we need. We start with say basic thing, air, right? Pranayama. We need oxygen. So there is a tree called pimple tree. It's a huge big tree where Gautam Buddha sat for 6 months under that tree. That tree works opposite to the biology, whereby even at night time it gives oxygen to you. So you don't get up tired or in that condition in the morning when you get up, if you sleep under that tree. So it is kind of, it's not a ban, but since it is considered holy, nobody touches it or cut the tree or anything. And there are those trees at many places, including near temples also. There is a small bush called Tulsi. It's a small one, tiny one. And that bush is, you will see in most people's front yard, they will have that bush, not a yard, right at the door, they will have that small bush. That also does give oxygen at night. Besides oxygen, it has many, many medicinal values too. So people use it for those things. And the latest thing, I just got 3 days ago on app, somebody sending on WhatsApp, that this phone gives the radiation. And they say, you take the leaf of those, put it here, and you won't see the radiation. You cannot measure it. I mean, there are few experiments they have shown on those things. So it has numerous values to it. Second, air, then comes the water. So every water bodies are considered holy. Among all the holy water bodies, obviously you have heard about holy Ganges, or we call Ganga. That's the name of the river, Ganga, but in English they call it Ganges. It signifies because it comes from Himalaya and goes through so many states all the way to Bengal, Bangladesh, and that's where it meets the ocean. Also, when you go to the UP, they call Uttar Pradesh, and certain region part of it, you feel it is like a mother. I went there one time to take a bath in it, and you have to go almost like more than 50 feet to get so you can take a dip. It is just shallow. And it's a filling of the water. That water provides so much in the northern part of it. Now, lately we just learned that Britishers used to take those water in 55-gallon drums to England for medicinal value. So it has probably many other significance which are not known to the common people today. But every river body or every water body, the lake or river, are really considered holy. Third thing is a cow. Why cow over every other animal? Well, ox is a horse. They were all used all the time. Buffalo, still they use buffalo milk. Cow is very special. Cow takes little from us and gives much more back to us. Basically, it takes grain, grass, and water from us. That's all it needs. In return, obviously, we all know cheese, curd, or milk, all those things, offspring, ox. And you may be surprised, but the urine is also used as a medicine. And you can even buy urine at certain places in India. I'm not going deeper. There are many, many part of the cow, and cow is most, cow here don't have a horn, so you don't really see how nice they look like. But in India, cows have horns, and they look so beautiful too. Besides, like a horse looks like often beautiful, like that way. But cow essentially is prayed because it provide all the essential things to us. So all of this nature, obviously we pray wind, we pray fire. Every first Sunday of the month in our temple here, Hindu-Jain Temple, we pray fire. It's called Havan. Basically make a fire and pray. That is symbolizing to burn all the bad vasanas, all the bad desire we have, to burn them in the Havan. So these are the 4 different categories where we pray different things. Now, what are the goals for Hindus in the life? One is the salvation of soul. We do go to pilgrimage. There are pilgrimage point in India. Some places there are 64 for the mothers. These different mothers have it. And there are 4 big ones where Vishnu's places are there. So people, it is not a mandatory that in entire life you must go, but this is what people do, the pilgrimage. In every Hindu home, first thing in the morning after taking, daily things, taking bath, they will be lighting a lamp or candle, if you want to call it. In old days, used to be the oil wick, and now it came a ghee wick, and now maybe candle, who knows what people have it, or electronic people. But people will have it, pray for a few minutes, then they will have their tea and start their day. That's very, very routine, at least once. Some people do twice, in the morning as well as in the evening. We call Sandhya, means dawn, dusk, dawn and dusk. Also at that time we pray too. In worship, I forgot to mention the sun part of it. Sun is the most single important part in our life. You cannot imagine the life without sun. It just doesn't give the only light, energy, but the sustainability starting from algae growth to all the vegetable growth because of the sun. So we are sun worshipper. My mother always used to, first thing, once she get ready in doing those lighting lamp, she will go and offer water to sun god standing at the window. And you may have seen sometimes pictures where people standing in the river up to waist, water up to waistline, and then offering water to sun. So sun has many, many different things. You can talk and write about it. But I'm just saying, we are sun worshipper, tree worshipper, cow worshipper, water body worshipper. So every natural element which sustains our life or helps sustain our life are being worshipped. And I consider, when do you worship something? When you have a kind of a reverent feeling toward the subject. Even any individual. If you like some individual with a lot of virtues, then you would have a reverent feeling immediately. Not by title reverent, but it is something you start doing it. So the goal, how do you achieve this goal of salvation then? Basically what is salvation or the liberation we call is getting out of birth and death cycle. We consider there are 8.4 million species on this earth. And most all of us go through all of them. However, human life is considered a top of all of the life. And if you get it, human life, you must not waste time or ruin your human life. So then what do you do? So we say there are 4 ways you can do it. One, bhakti, or chanting the name or mantra or whatever way you like it, you do it. Or there are many songs in I see in Catholicism and Christianity otherwise too, is to praising the God. There are various different kind of things. God doesn't have any name. It just basically you just pray. Second thing is called knowledge. There are people who are very highly intellectual, who have time and God has given gift. So they take these books, contemplate, and physically and they intellectually they are thinking and learn about what is, because every human has a question: who am I and where is God? So second one we call a jnana. First we call bhakti yoga or the devotional one. Second one is the knowledge. Third one we call karma yoga. Karma means the duty, to do the duty. We all are born as a human, then we have also duty on this earth to perform. And as long as you perform your duty faithfully, if you are carpenter, you are professor, you are clergy, whatever you may be, mother, father, as long as you perform your duty faithfully, you can also reach to the liberation. And the fourth one is called Raja Yoga or meditation, whereby some people in society, they give up the family, go out, you don't have to go out, but they go out in isolation and simply just in caves of Himalaya or somewhere and sit there and contemplate. Some of them never come out to public, few do come out, but most of them they sit there in caves and get their own salvation in that order. So those are the four major paths we call you can get liberation for your soul from birth and death cycle. One of the questions people ask, what about happiness? Well, happiness is one of the very important part of it. And Hinduism teaches that you get happiness by renunciation, not by accumulation. So if your needs are the minimum, you will be the most happiest person probably on this earth. And to symbolize that, we have Lord Shiva. You know, he puts ashes on his body and does the tilak on body and everything is all ashes. And he symbolizes renunciation for happiness in the life. Now, how do we really do the daily life in practices? We have, we call satsang. Satsang means a company, sat means the person who has the virtues. So you try to keep the company of the person with virtues. That's how you can get into it. Then there are obviously books of many songs on the soul as well as on different things of how to learn and those things. The fasting. Fasting is really also part of a practice among Hindus. We have different calendar than Georgian calendar. Georgian is essentially solar, our goes basically on the lunar calendar, goes with the position of moon, full moon, no moon, 15 days. And 11th day of the 15th day is considered the holy, and many people do the fasting. Full moon also people do the fasting, but that is for the different reason for it. And then we have 7 days, same as we have same Monday through Sunday or Sunday through Saturday. And different day has been allotted for the different planet. So Ravi means sun, Sunday means sun, Monday goes to Shiva, Tuesday goes to Hanuman, it's a kind of different planet. I talk about planet separately, but these are allotted to 7 days to 7 different planets, and people perform the fast of different kind on different days. So the fasting is part of the Hindu culture, if you want to call it. You don't have to do everything, but many people continue doing it. In our life cycle, right from the conception of child in mother's womb, we start celebrating those events. And they are called 16 different events in life. Conception is the first one, and death is the last one. So there are rites for each one of them, which includes, you have baptism, we have a kind of secret thread ceremony. at the age around 8 to 14, when you think his person is capable of knowing, doing certain things. Then marriage and all, it goes on those things. And last rite is a death, which is the 16 of that one. We don't have to go to temple at all like people go to church. As I say, everyone has a small temple, if nothing else, just small photograph. If not a photograph, you pick up the stone and designate whatever you want to and start praying. So it is very, very convenient in that order, as long as you contemplate upon it. Here I would say about praying to the God. When I say the monotheist versus polytheist, all the gods you see in the temple, we have about 18 in this temple here, Hindu-Jain Temple. When you do that, why are there? They are there because human being, to concentrate on formless form, still needs something. So if you have taken any meditation classes, they put the candle and say, okay, concentrate on that, or have a blue light in your heart or something somewhere. So here we have portrays them as a human being with different virtues and different strengths. So you see 4 hands, 8 hands, some weapon, some book, some money, some blessing. All of those are portrayed by the human being. But when you pray it, I don't think any one of those comes to you, because you have been trained enough to go beyond those murtis or images, and you go to the ultimate God, which is formless form. And that is why you do not necessarily have to go to temple every day, or even once a month or once a year even. When we were young, my mother, I don't think remember going much until she was retired. And many people, they just basically take care of it themselves at home. Other part is symbolism. What you see in the temple or anywhere else, Hinduism uses a lot of symbolism. So what you see is not what it really meant. There are deep rooting meaning behind what they have. And as a result, even the Hindus themselves have no knowledge about what it means or what it might meant to tell you until they attend some particular scholar's things and somebody explains to them. I can stop here because there is a lot of other material. I'll take questions now.
Yes, let's take questions now. And I have cards here, so there's the opportunity to write out questions. And some of you may be ready with a question right now, even before you get a card. And please ask a question, don't give a speech. Thank you.
Are you saying that the castes, so to speak, are still honored, and that it's one's duty to stay in one's caste? I'm sorry, am I speaking loudly enough?
It is me, not you.
Okay.
I do have little bit hearing thing. I mean, I got tested and I know I have a problem. That's why I came closer to you.
Are you saying that the caste system is still very much alive in India, and that one has a duty to stay within their caste role in life?
Okay. Now, let me explain about the caste. I mentioned a little bit earlier. First, the caste is not the correct word.
No.
We call either jati or varna. We call, see, it is, I am most fond of that establishment of the society 100,000 years ago, whereby nobody goes hungry at night. because it is a bartering system where you do this thing for you, or even if you don't do, there is a local municipality will take care of it. But if somebody is asked to clean the street and comes to your doorstep, you are going to give them some food. So there was no unemployment or anything of any kind. And the caste or the jati, like I am Kshatriya, I am born Kshatriya, though I am not doing anything of those kind. I am not a policeman, I am not in military. My background is environment for last 45, 50 years or so. Same way, anybody could be anything there today and before. So you could be born at the carpenter's house, but you don't have to remain carpenter. If you have a different talent, say if you are a musician, you could just become a musician and make a living out of music. However, because you were born at carpenters, last name could be still carpenters, and people may know you that you have some talent as a carpenter. Because growing up, you see your father or mother, mostly father, doing the carpentry work and you learn it. So does it exist today? To some degree still yes. In the last 200 years with industrialization, things have changed quite a bit. Industrialization came very late in India, it just last 50 to 70 years maximum probably, I would call it. So everyone has job, whatever they like, whatever they can do, or they have a talent for, will be hired and they do it. So no, they do not have to be in that group. However, if somebody is born Brahmin, I'll just give you a classical example of the way we used to have a system, and I can vouch for it because I consider myself most lucky to be living in that kind of a system which we used to have it. It's kind of deteriorating now. We used to have a Brahmin who will come to my house and perform the puja and all the rituals and everything, and in return my mother would give them gift full of scatter full of it, and my father may give some money. My shoes when I was a kid were made by, actually they own us because they lease us to somebody else when they want to give us, and in return they get the grain. I had a barber, he used to cut my hair. Not only hair, he used to do a lot of things for gathering and cleaning and many different things. In return, obviously, what they get is grain and ghee. We used to have a tailor when I was a kid who used to sew my shorts and shirts and those things. That's how they used to do it. Now, where is my barber son? One is in England, one is in Bombay, and two, I don't even know, they were so little, they are somewhere. So now when I go back, people have come from some other part and they have taken over them and they come and ask me to pay them, even though I don't get my hair cut by them, because that's what the system was. Our tailor son is in Bombay. I don't know exactly what he's doing. Initially he was doing tailoring, but now probably maybe something else. So people don't have to be in the same profession what they were born in. And this it never was. But you are born, so whatever I am born, so Patel, so if you tell somebody Patel, they will a whole picture of my 10 generation or 100 generations. Say this is how they own the land, they have this, this like that. See, 200 years ago there was nobody poor or very rich, except the people who do the trade business. The king will go to those trade business people to get the money, because they are the one who had money. It's the third tier in this group of those people. The cleverest and the smartest and intellectual people were Brahmin, who were the advisor. They will only get whatever king would probably give them. And soldier obviously have a minimum wages anyway. But today it's a different society. They don't have to be. No one have to be in any shoes if they don't want to be. However, do they exist? Yes, they do exist. It's not going to go away that fast until a lot of migration of profession occurs among the people. And still, we have our own qualities and virtues by profession which were embedded for last how many years, I'm not sure. Because we in our society are considered giver. Entire society dependent on Patels. We give to everybody. We don't receive. So many of our people, even today, they will not take any donation. They will not eat anything given free to them. Ever, period. They will go hungry. I have seen people going hungry, but they won't take it free. So it is, so this quality, eventually could be other people who become differently, but those qualities are going to be with the people.
Would someone else like to ask a question?
Yes, sir.
I have many questions, very deep, but I'm not going there because of limitation of time.
Thank you.
Directly, I will ask a few questions to my dear friend, and if you permit me,
Sure.
please, I would like to answer her question.
Sure, go ahead.
Because she asked something else, your answer was totally different.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Which I feel.
No, fine, that's fine.
And
It happens.
Please forgive me.
No problem.
I'm not trying to undermine your quality of response, but I was a little bit compelled
Okay,
to give her a direct
sure.
answer.
Go ahead, sir. Be my guest.
Can I? In India, the caste system is the blot to humanity. It is started from Veda, which my dear friend is referring, Sanatana Dharma. Still, it is carried on in its ugliest form, from Prime Minister, President, and person who is cleaning the street. The Brahmins considered themselves the highest, and below that all three. And highest, so-called, in their mind, will not marry, will not allow to marry her daughter or son to the lower one. And the lower one will not allow the lower one and lower one. Ugliest form in the whole world. I traveled many parts of the world. I never heard this ugly word, caste system. People who clean the street, actually they should be hugged and kissed. So they are doing the menial and they are not paid barely anything. Instead, hugging and helping them, they are seen with disdainfully and rejected. And just they are treated like a dirt. So yes, 100% it is existing in its flourishing. And whatever the notion is, the division of labor, but it is malpracticed in its ugliest form even this very moment. And the government, the public, everything they see, but they don't see. You can make a law, but if you don't practice, it is meaningless. So my direct answer is yes, it is there, flourishing, and it is a cover-up to show the image of the country that our country is very beautiful, but it needs certain courage to speak the truth, even about yourself, family, country, nationalism, jingoism, organized religion, and scriptures, prophet, son of God. It needs certain courage to talk against these enshrined, famous figures. It needs certain courage. People basically don't have courage. They have become the victim of conditioning of mind. A Hindu, a Muslim, a Jew, and Buddhist and all. So that's another deep story. And I like to answer your question. Yes, it is there. And it's very ugly and I hate it. Actually, it's a very heavy word. I hate it. It's a very heavy word. And asking my dear friend, you mentioned, I'm touching very simple subject, very simple. You mentioned about the heartbeat of Hinduism is, or Buddhism is non-violence. Non-violence. How do you compare your state of mind and art of living based upon Hinduism and Buddhism when you see all around other religions killing and eating animals? And I want you to be upfront, open, and fearless.
No, I'm upfront because I'm a member of Jewish Wedge. Also, I prescribe to the sentence which was in the Good Neighborhood movie by Roger that I don't eat anything which has a mother. And I'm fully vegetarian, don't even eat egg or anything containing egg.
So how do you speculate, see, and feel that you are non-violent? Even Buddhism says when you walk on the earth, it is your mother, do not walk violently. And Buddhism said if you chew your food, don't be violent against it. It is your life. Be very polite to it. When they go so subtle and deep in the statement, but when you see non-Hindus, non-Buddhists, they kill, hunt and eat animals, which goes totally against the philosophy of Hinduism and Buddhism. What is your own views about this difference? I'm saying own views,
yes.
Your own.
My personal view is ignorant of people. If you take these children, I worked in air pollution and happened to go to St. Cloud, Minnesota for taking an odor sample. Unfortunately, ended up in a slaughterhouse. And soon I opened the door, I instantly vomited and had to go to motel and had to be replaced by somebody else. Since then, I thought more and more about the subject that people who buy the grocery in a grocery store, if you take all of them to that slaughterhouse, 90% will stop eating next day probably, and then remaining may take time or may not, not all of them, but most people will. Because by nature, I think we all have a pure soul. It is just coated with some ignorance of our own. I have some ignorance, and that's what I am. And each one of us has some different kind. So if you see that ignorance will go away, at least about how the cow or any animal suffers and how the blood, I don't want to describe it graphically here, but I'm sure if you take any classroom student or group of people, they will stop it. And I have in mind personally, by joining this, I met the person who started a Jewish Wedge. But I was surprised too, and the way I started is, I personally believe to propagate my own theory and idea about becoming a vegetarian. And I saw his article in Pittsburgh Post-Gazette when he said, if you become a vegetarian, how much money country can save, how many life can be saved, and all of the, here put a lot of economics in it. So I found his name and got a phone number and called him and then met. And anyway, that's the story part of it. There is, particularly in West and also Middle East. Middle East is in a dark age. It was in dark age, and still it is in a dark age. It's far behind the world. I do my own work writing and doing writing graphically also sometimes, where they stand in so-called civilization of the world, in thinking part of it. Not, people may have money. Money doesn't mean anything. You are not necessarily civilized because you have money. And West, particularly more and more, when you say you have traveled a lot, I may not have traveled as much, but from what I know about compared to Europe and USA, most people in USA have ancestors came from Europe, Europe is far ahead in vegetarianism or veganism and those things compared to here. Here it is all controlled by the money. Beef lobby, this lobby, this lobby, this lobby, and they brainwash it basically to all of us. And we basically buy the products. So how do I feel it? My mother was here. I used to take her in grocery store. She never went into the meat aisle, period. I mean, one time she saw it and since that doing this thing and walked away and she never went there. I walk everywhere. As I said, I had been to every filthy place in the world of every category, and I know what goes around in the world, underworld, above world. I only thing say is people are ignorant and need to be educated, and that's what the thought came is to take them to slaughterhouse to stop it. If I keep on writing article about beef lobby, it won't work. But if I take every classroom from the high school to show them, I'm sure within 10 years you will see big number of adults stopping. And once adult, I am also an educator. I used to educate for environmental thing, and we targeted the middle school. That's where they are able to learn. That's why they are able to question their parents. Just beginning to question the parents before they become teenagers and then don't listen at all. So we used to do that, and I think if we take those group of children to this kind of places, obviously with parents' permission, we can make this society and maybe entire world kind of so-called non-violence. And we believe, and I personally believe, you are what you eat. This video game, there is a lot of studies are done on video game and how children are becoming violent and all of those things. Same thing about the food and thoughts. Even just a simple thinking, we have some stories, I don't know how many true are, but we have stories, at least when somebody tells us how not to do certain things, then they tell stories. And in stories by person eating at the thief house, person has collected the wealth by wrong way, let's call that way. And he happened to host this saintly person. So saintly person eats, and then he sleeps over there. At midnight, suddenly his mind changed. And he changed and he thought maybe, this guy has so much jewelry and this money. And it was easy access to him because he was put into the room where he had access to jewelry and everything. And he decided to steal. So he actually steals, goes out. Soon he goes out. He said, what did I do? What do I need for? I don't need this jewelry or anything for any reason. Why did I steal it? So he goes back and asks this man, I say, listen, say, sorry, I took this thing from you, but I do like to know, how do you make your living? You are very correct. Now I'm going to give my personal view, not folks or anybody else. In this real world, less than 1% of the people practice what they preach. Most of us do a lot of talking, or what we decide from the literature available to us without really following to it fully. That's an unfortunate part of it. That's why we had First World War, Second World War, or any war we have, even today. Every missionaries or every discipline of Christianity is like grasshopper in India, because they can understand English, they can speak English, there are a lot of poor people, so they trample upon religion and try to convert them. Same thing with Islam is doing it. At least one thing I can tell about Hindu or India in general, I put synonymously both together. In last 10,000 years of history, India has never invaded any country, ever.
I do want to recognize that we established a time limit, and So what I'd like to do right now is to thank everyone who's come and to thank Bob who's doing the videography and encourage anyone who wants to have some conversation once the cameras are turned off to continue the conversations because there's a lot to talk about.